Welcome everybody, quite a crowd. Welcome along, it's good to see you here showing interest. I must advise you that the meeting is being recorded, digitally recorded in accordance with council policy. The recording of the meetings is to help with the preparation of minutes and also to allow for live streaming. The Circular Council acknowledges the Northwest Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of the country in which we stand, meet and play. We recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay respects to elders, past, present and emerging. If I could ask the upstanding for prayers, please.
Tonight we pray to you who art Mother, Father to us all, for wisdom and clarity in discussion and debate. We ask that thy light and eternal grace shine in our hearts, now and always. Thou who art one, although known by many names, and whose truth is expressed in many faiths.
Thank you. Everybody's in attendance, so there's no apologies and no leave of absences. Confirmation of the minutes, 2.1, confirmation of minutes. Did somebody move Councillor Olraker?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I would like to suggest an amendment to the previous minutes. Just an admin oversight, just to include Councillor Hines' comments regarding item 9.4 of the January meeting. Words to the effect to be included, such as, in support of the amendment, Councillor Hines summarises DSG Transport's position on roadkill, and that in consultation with a lot of business people and other daily road users believes that Woolnorth Road does not warrant speed limit changes and would provide unnecessary impost on the business community and all other users, which I'll forward it on.
Thanks. Around the table, are we happy with that adjustment to the minutes? Yes, yes, yes.
Can you put that up on the screen, please? What? Do we have a second for that?
Yeah.
No, we don't.
Not for that part, we need a second for the minutes once we're happy with this one. Right, is that so we can all see that? No. No? Yeah. So councillors, are you happy with that wording? Or addition to the minutes?
And all other road users. I'd like the word road in there. Road users, yes.
Yeah, okay. There? Just there?
Oh yes,
Right.
there, right.
Happy?
Yep.
Right, if we're happy with that, Councillor Olraker's move, I need a second for the minutes. Move Deputy Mayor, second Deputy Mayor, sorry. I'll put the motion, those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Declarations of interest.
I'll rise to declare. I've been advised by the General Manager, I'm going to turn this on. I've been advised by the General Manager and indirectly the Executive Director of the Office of Local Government that I have a conflict of interest. While I believe this is wrong both in principle and legally, I have decided to comply and absent myself when Council acts as a planning authority. I believe it is wrong to have been excluded from briefing and discussions on this planning application, as the community has been denied advocacy on a very important matter.
I've also been advised I counsel that I have a conflict of interest, and I am absolutely willing to step out of this one. And I hope that the meeting just moves on and it's very respectful. Thank you.
I too am declaring an interest in this one. I will say about that. I wish everybody all the best with it.
Thanks, councillors.
What about actually Kapowski? He's the one telling the community.
Melissa, please, the opportunity to ask questions will come, so please don't call. Melissa, please don't call out from the floor. The opportunity will be there to answer questions. Ask
Why is the
questions.
community not a conflict of interest?
Melissa, please, I'll ask one more time. Please don't call out from the floor. Okay. 4.1, Mayor's Communications. Is there any questions from any of those meetings or etc.?
Just a question.
Tony?
Thank you. Just on, can you give us a report on your meeting with the Arthur Pyman Conservation Group, and secondly, recasting the Tasmanian dream? Just brief outline of what that was about, thanks.
The Arthur Pyman or APCA committee meeting was a standard monthly meeting. There wasn't a lot outside of what's already been on the table coming through from that. We haven't yet got back, as we mentioned, with the consulting, which will happen in the near future. So it was just a standard meeting and nothing extra really to report that hasn't been reported. Recasting the Tasmanian Dream was a workshop, if you like, of around housing, etc., put together by Cradle Coast, and there was a discussion on different ways and different thoughts around housing, the viability and use.
Thank you.
Councillor Flowers?
Yeah, with the Arthur Pyman conservation area, what's the attendance rate? Like, does everyone turn up to that meeting, or is it
Yeah, well, actually, the one before I was an apology because I had a conflict with the education thing here that day. But yeah, all the members are basically there. I was trying to think, I don't think there was any apologies this time.
Could councillors introduce themselves when they ask questions, please?
Right, sorry, yeah, I'll call their name, sorry, I apologise, I'll call their name out when they do. No more questions on that. And the notification of council workshops. Are there any questions or comments on those? Can I have a move that we accept 4.1, 4.2, 4.3?
So moved.
Thanks, Councillor Hine. A seconder, please, Councillor Flowers. No further discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Public questions received in writing. There's a question through the agenda from James West in relation to Robbins Island with the response there. An appendix with that. A question from Donald Hay with a response. Question from Steve Pilkington with a response. Several questions there from Rebecca Tyers. Hope I got it right, sorry. With responses. I think that's a lot of the questions in writing with the responses which are attached to the agenda. The The council encourages community participation in its meetings through the opportunity for public questions and statements consistent with the council's core values. Councillors and staff strive to ensure all people are treated with courtesy, fairness, dignity and respect. We expect our residents and ratepayers to supply similar standards in dealing with councillors. As Mayor, it is my responsibility to maintain the orderly conduct of the council meetings and determine whether a question, statement is out of order due to use of offensive, objectionable or defamatory expressions. I ask members of the public to show proper consideration and courtesy in these comments. Tonight we intend to give everybody the opportunity to ask 2 questions, if they wish. I will, in this session, we'll have the questions now, so anyone can ask 2 questions. If you have a statement, hold that, because then the opportunity will be to give a statement. Straight after, then we'll do the questions first. All questions and statements at this point are not on the planning matter, so the opportunity to ask questions and make statements on the planning matter will be made in the planning session. So if there's anybody that's got a general question or question on the rest of the agenda, please come to the lectern, state your name and ask a question.
Good evening, Mr Mayor and Councillors. For the record, my name is Mike Buckby. I'm a resident landowner at West Montague. Councillors, I'd like to thank you firstly for your leadership last previous meeting regarding the lowering of the speed limits through West Montague, through our hill and through, you can see it through Wool North as well. It's something that we as residents have been looking for about 3 decades, since the increase of the road, since the Wool North conversion. I know currently, as per the regulation, the Transport Commissioner can only speculate or change speed limits because of road safety. I think that there's a couple of motions later on the meeting that I'd like to commend to councillors regarding revisiting this issue and even looking at lowering the speed limit to 70 through the West Montague Hill and through 80 through the Wool North area. For this minor inconvenience for business owners and residents, I believe that now our produce we produce from this area, the dairy product and beef product and seafood, doesn't cease at the municipal boundaries, but goes throughout the world. My question is, Mr Mayor, that what's the usual precedence for the Transport Commissioner to make a decision from Council's recommendation? Does the Transport Commissioner come back to the residents in the affected area or consult as well, or is it just a recommendation straight acceptance of the council?
Thanks, Mike. I might pass to James if you can take that, please.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. It's not usual for the Transport Commissioner to come back to residents, but I can't speak on behalf of the Transport Commission in this case. Yeah, I haven't been aware of in the past that the Transport Commissioner has consulted with residents, but I can't speak on behalf of the state government. It may happen in this case.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My name is James Westmitten. My question would be, through the chair, to Councillor Hine. Having watched the previous meeting, a lot of the councillors seem to be confused as to the issues of the Wool North speed limit matter. I support Mark Babner's attempt to try and get some sort of indication, which possibly Councillor Hine could answer through the chair, is what professions or trades would be affected, especially in the evening or at night, if the speed limit was reduced. It was just a general statement by Councillor Hine saying that so many trades would be affected. We've already had responses, and you have yourself, Mr. Mayor, but most trade people there say, no, we're not that affected. Thank you.
Councillor Hine, do you wish?
Yes, certainly I do wish to make a statement on it. First of all, we only went down that path as far as reviewing the speed limit because the Department of State Growth knocked back an earlier motion that our previous council put that was to impose a speed limit on that road from 6 p.m. till 12 p.m. And so that was knocked back. Now, that's where I think we should be putting the emphasis on to a dusk to dawn type of a approach to the government and see if we can get them to change their mind to then allow us to put a speed limit on that road. But it does, if they're going to do that, it does need to go on every municipality in Tasmania that has a Tasmanian devil within its municipality.
Thank you. Thanks, James.
Good evening. Thank you, councillors. I sincerely appreciate the work you do for the district. My name is Phil Critchlow. I live at Barrow. Some of you may know I've been a driver in this area in Michelin for the last 45 years. So I figure I'm here, I've been present at certain discussions to talk with the animals that can't talk, you know, the birds and especially our Abalone crayfish that depend on the clean water in this district. My question is to, I guess I address it to all this. For nearly 4 years, the community members have repeatedly asked the Circular Head Council to hold a community meeting about the proposed Robins Island wind farm project without success. Is the council's invitation to community members to ask questions tonight, literally just before the council votes, the council's answer to those repeated requests?
Sorry, Phil. Sorry, I missed coming in. Sorry, mate. My apologies.
Well, in the last 4 years, community members have been asking for a community meeting with the council to discuss the Robins Island wind farm project. It hasn't been successful. Now, is this meeting the council's answer to that? Now, I know the standard answer would be UPC have had community meetings, but they are the developers and the proponents for this.
Well, yeah, we've got to, that is going to be handled in the planning. I can't answer, but really.
But you're voting on tonight.
Yes. Yes. So.
You don't know how we feel.
Sorry?
You have the community feels as our representatives?
There's been lots of comments and questions and put to many councillors, both previous and this one. So we had a reasonable idea from a reasonable number of people.
I don't want to take up too much time. There's one other little thing too with regard to the speed limit from More North and the death of the devils.
Yes.
The last council meeting we went to, I suggested that there be more road slashing and clearing those verges back to make the road wider, so that the previously I and it's skip Harbour Road again when it's planned, but the policy is that once you.
Right, thanks, Phil. We'll take that on notice and
Thank you once again, Olivia.
thank you.
Hi everyone. My question follows on from Mr. West's question. How many tradies were consulted?
Name, please.
Oh, sorry, Alice House.
Yes,
Sorry.
thank you.
I would like to know how many tradies were consulted, as all the major proponents out there and people who have been at the workshops and the major stakeholders were all in agreement on the 80Ks. I'd just like to know the number of tradespeople that came to you to sway all those major employers. It seems interesting. And the reason this devil population is the one we're looking at is because it's unique. It doesn't have facial children. Other municipalities don't have what we have. And 16 from dusk till dawn, unfortunately, is not enforceable. So that is only a recommended speed limit. We can't make people do the yellow sign, you can't make people do 60. Thank you.
We'll take that and come back in. Melissa, please.
Hello, my name's Melissa Wells. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Tasmanian Devils because they don't have a voice. Why won't you help save my lives?
No, Melissa, please.
No, I'm sorry, but this is confronting, but this is what we have to deal with every day.
Please, if you don't take it away.
190
Melissa, last morning I will ask you to leave the meeting.
Well, do you find it confronting?
Melissa, last morning I will ask you to leave the meeting. Thank you. Is there any further questions?
Excuse me, I'd like an answer to my question. On behalf of the Tasmanian Devils, why will you not try and save their lives?
But I think you'll find in the agenda a couple of motions that may do that.
No, what I've seen happened at the last council meeting.
This is not the last council meeting, Melissa. This is
In regards to the road change in the conditions of the road and the speed that was supposed to be changed down there, the way I understand it is the state government supported it, VDL supported it, all the vets and that supported it, all the people that use that infrastructure, all the locals. The only people who didn't support it was a couple of councillors. And the behaviour that went on at the last meeting I find inappropriate. Councillor Collins seconded that motion and then was confused as to whether or not she should vote for it and was told by Ashley Leposki not to vote for it.
That's not the case.
You can hear it as free all day on the video.
Please. So what is your question?
Why are you not going to try and save the Tasmanian Devils' lives?
I don't think anyone around this table doesn't want to save the Tasmanian Devils' lives. So the answer is I don't think we are not trying to save Tasmanian Devils' lives. There may be opinions on how that goes about. They may differ to yours, but I don't think anyone's not wanting to do that.
190 plus devils in 2 years, facial tumour-free devils in 2 years.
Yep.
Is appalling.
We know the numbers.
Disgusting.
We know the numbers. Thanks, Melissa. Yes, please.
My name is Kerry Houston. Mayors and councillors, I would just like to ask in relation to the speed limit, where you look at the rules and regulations about being able to lower the speed, you mentioned that you look at the health and safety of members of the community. Is that correct?
That's, as I understand it, James, is what the Transport Commission looks at.
Yes.
So is it possible, is it possible to, with regards to people's health and safety, to also look at the significant distress that it's causing a large number of people in the community with the devils being killed? Because I personally have spoken to quite a few people who are on the verge of tears talking about this issue time and time again because they are so distressed at the number of devils that have been killed.
Thanks, Gary. And once again, in the agenda, there's a couple of motions there that may address what you're talking about, but we need to get to them and debate them before that answer comes through.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. There was a few statements floating through amongst those questions, but I'm happy to take individual statements on any issue. If you haven't spoken already, on any issue apart from planning. Please remember that a statement can be no longer than 2 minutes. Thank you.
The statement, I'm calling that this is a statement from Fred Fulham. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether planning has anything to do with planning, but anyway, I don't think so. Some councillors.
What's your name?
Colleen Murphy is my name. Small councils are rightfully concerned about the significant amount of money required to participate in an appeal to the Tasmanian Civil and Administration Tribunal. However, in the case of this proposal, Council should also be mindful of cumulative expenditure going forward should the wind farm become a reality. There is no revenue stream for the Council from the wind farm itself. Rates will be levied on the lost host property as unimproved rural land, while Council officers are required to monitor the wind farm's legal operation. Should there be any claim about non-compliance, noise being an obvious and topical complaint, the Council will find itself embroiled in legal issues consuming significant staff resources and funding. As an example, during a protracted investigation between 2016 to 2019, which ultimately found the operator of the Bald Hills Wind Farm in Victoria had caused a noise nuisance under public health law, the South Gippsland Shire Council was sued 3 times, by neighbours twice and then by the wind farm operator. The court ordered the council to pay the neighbours' legal costs. The Glenelg Shire Council in Victoria is being sued in relation to the Cape Bridgewater Wind Farm. A council investigation between 2018 and 2022 outlaid over $80,000 for third-party consultations. In addition, it has incurred legal costs of senior counsel, junior counsel and a large law firm to defend its decision-making in court proceedings. If it loses the battle following trial, the Shire will be ordered to pay costs of the neighbours, which is likely to be in excess of $100,000 of ratepayers' money. The sugarcoating of the Community Partnership Fund should not be seen as offsetting any administrative costs which the Council will incur for the proposed 50-year life of the project. During this deliberation, I trust that the elected members and their advisors are not unnerved by the prospect of upholding their integrity in the face of threatened appeal costs.
Thanks, Colin. You did jump at the wrong spot, but we've got your statement. Thank you. Is there any statements outside of the planning matter, which is the Robbins Island Wind Farm? Is there any other statements? If not, we'll move forward. Thank you for your questions and statements. Planning Authority matters. Pilkington, as a citizen, is going to make a statement and then leave the room.
I make a statement as a chairperson of the Secretary of the Coastal Awareness Centre. I want to ask councillors to look critically at this planning report on Robbins Island DA. The turbine, the bridges and the wharf do not comply with the planning scheme. They need to be dealt with as discretionary matters using the planning scheme's performance criteria. This means you have to justify the approval outlined in the report. Can you believe that wind turbines that are as tall as Melbourne skyscrapers will only have a low to moderate impact? In fact, they will change and dominate the vistas that we're now capturing in our strategic plan. Donald Hayes sent us a double photo that is contrasted the UPC montage taken on Hayes Road and one on a clear day. Can you trust the recommendations from a report based on an assessment on a hazy day when you could barely see the offshore islands? The report in large part concedes that most of the major matters to be considered by the Council do not have solutions. It relies on arguments of economic benefits, it's important to the state's renewable energy targets and community benefits. The flaw in this argument is that the economic benefits of renewable energy targets can be met by siting wind farms elsewhere in Circular Head. Sites that have far lower visual environmental and social consequences than Robbins Island. One example of this was provided in the well-thought-out letter from Tony Atkins published in the local press, which outlined the plan with far greater community benefits than Robbins Island. The resulting road infrastructure would open up enormous tourist opportunities for our region. The multi-million-dollar turbine rent would be a real community benefit, and the resulting power transmission would be 1/3 that required for the Robbins Island project. If this project is refused, it will be followed by projects that are better planned with greater benefits. The precedents will have been set that developers will look seriously at environmental and community concerns before starting, and not just money and convenience. I ask the councillors tasked with the difficult decision to think about what I've said. We can develop without destroying what we have.
I'll go through it again. We are going to take questions on the planning matter now. The opportunity will be given to make 2-minute statements on the planning matter. We'll have the questions first, please. I'll go through my spiel again. Council encourages community participation in its meetings through the opportunity for public questions and statements. Councillors and staff strive to ensure all people are treated with courtesy, fairness, dignity and respect. We expect our residents and ratepayers to apply similar standards in dealing with council. As Mayor, it is my responsibility to maintain the orderly conduct of the council meeting and determine whether a question or statement is out of order due to use of offensive, objectionable or defamatory expressions. I ask members of the public to show consideration and courtesy in their questions or statements. Tonight, I intend to give as many people as possible or the opportunity to ask up to 2 questions or to make 1 statement. In fact, everybody that wants to ask a question or make a statement may do so. Due to the numbers of people wishing to speak, we'll limit each speaker to 2 minutes in the statements to ensure everyone has the opportunity to have their say and we can get through to the business. If your question is long and complex, please provide a written copy. You can email it to the council tomorrow if you wish, to ensure we are able to provide an answer if we're not able to answer it here tonight. Please note that questions relating to matters determined by the EPA are not matters that council can change or comment on. Council is also not able to consider any new material tonight. It must make its decision on the information provided in the council agenda. Council will not comment on any legal advice it may have received in respect of Robbins Island. Council has been considering this matter for around 5 years, so tonight is the culmination of a very long process. Councillors have received a great deal of information and briefing over that time, and new councillors have received detailed briefing since their arrival and had considerable discussion and debate. If you wish to have the questions first, so if you wish to ask a question, please come to the front, state your name and ask your question.
My name is Malcolm Ryan. I'm from 5 Falklands Drive, Latrobe. I'd like to make a brief introduction to my question. In July 2022, Council received the draft Circular Head Municipality Scenic Values Assessment and Management Report compiled by Inspiring Place. In 1.1 of that report, it said Circular Head's landscape is highly diverse, much admired by its spectacular, rugged natural beauty and productive landscapes. The scenery of the place is loved and valued by locals and visitors alike and is a core element of the municipality's brand. Therefore, the local community want due consideration given to any development that might irrevocably impact the scenic values of the region. 249 surveys were received, with over 97% agreeing with that statement. Ramsar wetlands are those that are representative, rare or unique wetlands or are important for conserving biological diversity. To be classified a Ramsar site, the area must meet at least one of the 9 Ramsar criteria. In Australia, there is currently 67 Ramsar listings, with only 5 having met at least 7 of the 9 criteria. Wollonga Bay Robbins Passage has already met 7 of the 9 criteria and is not a Ramsar listed site as yet. One must ask why. In December at COP15, there was global recognition that all countries needed to increase efforts to protect natural and Just let me finish my
We
statement.
have the question, it's not statement time, it's question time.
And in the words of Angus Anderson, he said, nature and biodiversity is dying the death of 1 billion cuts, and we are committing suicide by proxy. The Tasmanian government has failed to produce a state of the environment report since 2009, having missed the 2014 legislated reporting requirements. This is a very minimum environmental corruption, if not legally challengeable. In summary, this means we do not know what the state of the environment is. My question is, are members acting as the planning authority tonight aware that they are legally required to assess the application against the performance criteria under clause 24.4.2 P3.2? Therefore, you must use your delegation powers and refuse a discretion to increase the zoning height by 1,250% from 20 metres to 270 metres, as the development does not satisfy the criteria of A, the visual impacts of the development, B, the characteristics of the vicinity of the site, or E, the potential impacts on birds. In summary, forget about the bird life, the devils, the wedge-tailed eagles, the Aboriginal heritage, visual impacts and the potential legal implications. Will members voting tonight be proud of the legacy that they will leave their grandchildren?
Councillors are aware of the responsibility.
Sorry, I did not hear.
Did not hear, sorry? Yes, the quoted councillors are aware of their responsibilities. Now, please, if you have a question, ask the question. The opportunity will be given for statements for 2 minutes later on. I'm sorry, that's been taken advantage of there, but from now on, please, if you have a question, come and ask a question. The opportunity will be there to make a statement after questions are finished. The general manager has one to read out for some person. Yep.
Yes, I've been asked to read out a couple of questions on behalf of Sally Bird. First question, where is the funding for the major infrastructure upgrade required for Montague/West Montague Road coming from? Okay, second question, is compensation being offered to landholders impacted by decreased property values, visual pollution, noise pollution from wind turbines, increased heavy traffic lasting on the island? Will we get notification? And my house is less than 5 kilometres from the proposed development. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take those on notice and respond in due course or quickly. Is there any other questions?
Hi, my name is Melissa Wells, and I have a question in regards to the developmental application and the Director of Infrastructure and Developmental Services. Whom is that currently at the council? Is it still Daniel Summers?
The question, please. Is that the question? Is that one of your questions?
Yes. Yep. Is it still Daniel Summers?
Mr. Summers is in the process of handing over his role to a new incumbent.
Okay. All right. My second question is in relation to a DA that this council passed in regards to a 15.8 hectare block on Grant Street, Smithton. One of the developmental application guidelines was all landscaping and planning to be completed before the permitted use may commence and is to be maintained in accordance with the approved plan to the reasonable requirements of the Director of Infrastructure and Developmental Services, whom at the time was Daniel Summers. This included trees being planted along the edge of a block on Grant Street before they were able to use it for cattle to roam in that paddock. There was no trees put in there whatsoever. and 12 months later, there was still no trees planted there. So if this is a small $2 million developmental application in the centre of our community, right next to one of our schools, and yous don't even, or not you, sorry, the previous mayor and council, or Director of Infrastructure and Developmental Services isn't going to hold them, DA people, to account, how do we have any faith in the current council holding the developmental guidelines, especially with the discretionary side of it, on a private island with a bridge with no access to the public?
Well, I don't know how to answer your question on this, I'm sorry. I don't know how to answer that question, so.
So you don't know whether your Director of Infrastructure and Developmental Services is going to be able to go in and check whether or not the DA requirements are being held to account? Because for over 12 months, they weren't held to account with a $2 million DA in this community. I contacted the Legislative Government, Integrity Commission, the Department of Premier and Cabinet, everybody. And they said, yes, the council did the wrong thing, but I'm sorry, they won't do it again. But I don't believe them.
Right, but if you don't believe them, Melissa, I can't make you believe them.
Well, can you convince me, Jared?
No, I can't.
So you're saying that...
I know, the questions are done, we'll follow up on the Grand Street one for you, but...
That was just an example to explain that a developmental application has criteria that have to be policed and...
We fully understand that. We fully understand that.
Well, you failed in the past with a $2 million thing, so why are you going to be able to do it in the future
this is not
on private land?
Melissa, this is not a debating session, so you've asked your question, we'll follow it up, so I'll ask you now to sit down, please.
No worries, thank you.
Is there any further questions? On the wind farm, please. Yep, the race is on.
My name is Lynn Jensen Schnapper. When are you going to answer the questions? There should be answers given and not just put aside.
Any questions asked tonight will have an answer in the next agenda and be contacted previous to that most likely as well. Does that answer your question?
No. I thought this meeting was about discussion before you vote.
Yes?
This is what it's supposed to be.
The discussion will be held by the council. This is a chance for the community to ask a question or make a statement. The discussion will be held by the council. Rebecca.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Tice and I just have two short questions. So the first one is, does the council think that the visual impact assessment for Robbins Island Wind Farm is credible / sufficient, given that it was authored by a person who has not been to the site in person or anywhere around in the surrounds, especially given the importance of scenic amenity to community wellbeing, investment and attracting new residents? And noting also that the wind farm has been touted as the biggest wind farm in the Southern Hemisphere. On page 3 of 120.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. I'll pass to Emma.
Thank you, Mayor. The visual impact assessment prepared by Orbit Solutions. The author is generally familiar with the area. The person who prepared the photo montages had extensively visited the site, and the methodology used for the visual impact assessment is a methodology that has been used before in Tasmania and accepted by the tribunal as a robust methodology.
Yeah, I was just looking here, it says explicitly in the assessment, it says, as such, interstate travel restrictions have been in place such that the author has not been able to visit the sites around. So I'm just quoting their document, and I would just like to assert that they used images composed by another person, and I did outline in my submission, which was 32 pages, I provided alternative images which
Our role is when you sit as a planning authority. We're not sitting as councillors at that point. We're a planning authority. Our role is to assess the information in front of us under the rules of the plan. That's our role.
Yeah, because in the past I've spoken to you a lot and you've redirected me to the EPA. So whenever I've asked a question of the council, I've been told the EPA will deal with that, not with us. So therefore you're asserting that the EPA's conditions are final and you agree with them.
We can't comment or alter any EPA condition.
Okay.
Simple as that. We cannot alter them, we cannot comment on them. The EPA has set those conditions in those areas. They're not part of this, of our, when we sit as a planning authority, they're not part of our remit.
Right.
That's just the law.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors and staff. My name is Cody Hutchison. I live in the Waratah municipality, so I thank you for allowing me to come and speak. I've been following this project for a number of years. I'm representation 293, pages 4430 to 4432 on tonight's agenda. My first question is, if councillors do not approve the wind farm development application and the applicant appeals to the Tascat Appeals Tribunal, what would the estimated total legal and associated costs to council be if the appeal against council decision was successful?
I don't know. We haven't considered that because we haven't been seeing the planning report, the application which we've got in front of us now, and we'll deal with shortly. So that hasn't been considered. It's not part of the. Could be 5, could be 6 figures. We don't know the answer.
Is there an upper limit?
Once again, it could be 5 figures, 6 figures. Don't know the answer.
So has council ever been involved in RMPAT or Tascat appeals before?
I would imagine they would have been. Yes, they would have, but
so you have a ballpark figure of how much?
It goes without saying there would have been nothing as big as this.
Okay, I'll take that as a response. My second question is, if councillors do approve the wind farm development application, does council know of any risk implications, legal ramifications or environmental implications of the decision to council or municipality, and if so, can council please inform the community of these?
We've been briefed on where we can, on the planning application, on a number of occasions. That'll be taken into account as we go through the debate shortly. As far as environmental conditions, they've been, once again, set by EPA. We cannot comment or alter those in any way.
And the legal ramifications?
Well, the legal ramifications we will look into if we get outside our remit, I presume.
So you haven't considered it in advance?
No, because we haven't seen any application in front of us.
Hello, Kerry Houston again. I have a question for the Mayor. Could you please outline to the community which of the planning items in this application are discretionary?
Or I'd have to call for help on that one. Emma will take that.
Thank you, Mayor. If Table 4 of the report outlines all the relevant standards under the planning scheme and identifies the ones that where performance criteria is specifically relied on. In total, there are 30 relevant standards in the planning scheme, and there are 18 matters on which council is required to exercise its discretion.
What are those 18 matters?
The application is for a discretionary use. There are zone-based standards that relate to requirements for discretionary use in the applicable zones. There are other zones, development standards relating to the suitability of the site, the location and configuration of development, including height and siting matters. There are also code-based issues, and those codes specifically relate to a hazardous use in the bushfire-prone area, as well as excavation and fill, which is dealt with under the changing ground level code, and development in proximity to a water body, water course, or wetland, and development in a shoreline area under the Water and Waterways Code.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no more questions, we'll open the opportunity for statements. If anyone has a statement on the planning matter, please keep it to 2 minutes. Anyone wish to make a further statement? If you haven't been up before.
Yeah, Mountain Stokes and Forest. Just I'd like to talk on this estimated annual revenue. Calculations based on the 5 megawatt wind turbine. The Roberts Islands proponent possesses wind turbines of between 4.5 and 6 megawatt, possibly up to 10. Estimated at $80 a megawatt hour generated, other wind farms receive considerably more than this. Calculations are based on the wind turbines operating at full capacity for 50% of the time. Roberts Island proponents expect a further generating capacity more than 50%, but 5 megawatts by $80 an hour by 24 hours by 365 days, and half of that is 1.752 million. In summary, each wind turbine on Roberts Island will provide the proponents for the Roberts Island wind farm at least 1.752 million each year. Not bad for land which enjoys a reduced council rates as unimproved farmland. I'd also like to say that if you do go over the above discretionary height, even at the height of 20 metres, I hope you really understand what's going to do to the visual impact of the land, let alone the Aboriginal landscape that we have here in Circle Head, and how important Roberts Island is to the Circle Head Aboriginal people. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further statements? Thank you. Oh, hang on. Someone is coming up, sorry.
Right. So as I said, my name is Cody Hutchison, and I have lived and worked in the Smithton area on and off during my life. I currently reside in the Waratah Wynyard area. What I will say is this project is very divisive. In my view, too divisive for the community to cope with for much longer. If it is approved by the council and the federal minister, then enters into the implementation phase. My observation would suggest that it could lead to large protests. This may divide the community for the next decade, or perhaps longer. Is this what councillors want? If it is not approved and isn't allowed to commence, the community will move on and heal from the division. There can be economic stimulus to the region without making it an ideological battleground. The question for councillors as a planning authority, do you want to be responsible for the headache of maintaining a divisive community through voting this development through? If you vote against the wind farm proposal, you send the decisions to the appeals tribunal, TASCAP, should the applicant appeal the decision. That scenario would be highly likely. The only thing the council risks are the legal costs and expectations of private developers and their supporters and the perceived economic flow on. The legal costs, as you stated earlier, are 5 figures, perhaps 6 figures. I'm saying probably between $50,000 and $50,000, maybe more, who knows. If you vote for and the DA is approved, you expose the council to much perceived and actual reputational risk to the council and the community, significant potential environmental ramifications and legal challenges. So we heard a speaker earlier that talked about other situations around Australia where the court has had to intervene following complaints from communities. So the challenges for potential negligence if the project goes wrong or compliance isn't assured. All the representations to this DA spell out all the potential harms and risks associated with the project that council is aware of. There could be more. The EPA has made a condition for the proposed operation to shut down parts of the year due to environmental precautions. Many representatives would appeal this approval, and there may be a chance that the original application would be adjusted or refused, leaving council to contemplate why you approved such a project at Tascat did not. So I just want to sum up by saying council does not need to bear the weight of the decision. I believe it is unfair that you have to. So you can vote against it, or you can abstain from voting. There is no risk personally to abstain or to vote against and go to the Tascat Appeals Tribunal and for them to make the decision. So councillors, please consider how to reduce the divisiveness in the community through your decision, your personal decision.
Thanks, Kate. Statement there.
Possible to ask one question?
Yeah, well, I'll create that opportunity for you. Just at the end of the statement, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
At the end of the statement.
We'll do a joint statement together. Kim and
But
Madison.
we all know Kim, but you're going to say it, please.
I continue to listen to the arguments as to why the wind turbine should be situated on Robbins Island, and for every valid reason, I can come up with numerous reasons why they shouldn't. These reasons against include the threat to fauna, avian, flora, Aboriginal heritage, the unknown impact on Tasmania's largest wetland from a causeway bridge, visual and noise impact, and the list goes on. Now I know there will be opposing argument and a lot of technical bureaucrat crap will be presented, so let's just boil this down to logical thinking and perhaps common sense. I am not against wind farms, and as we seek clean energy, they need to support in appropriate areas. However, common sense tells me you don't place huge rotating blades in the feeding and roosting areas of migratory and resident shorebirds, including the orange-bellied parrot migration path and the habitat of one of the last wild colonies of disease-free Tasmanian devils in the world, and sit back and believe it's not going to have detrimental effects. Similarly, you don't try and build a causeway bridge across a complex tidal flat, teeming in marine life, and not expect the ever-shifting sandbars to be affected. Our own experts' hydrology reports confirm this, but for some reason are selectively ignored. Interestingly enough, for this to proceed, there will need to be an easement across the 1.4 kilometre of sandbar and channels, which is currently owned and managed by government, in effect us. This will need to be gifted from the government, in effect our country land, to the proponents of the wind farms, giving foreign ownership and legal authority to construct their causeway bridge to the exclusion of the community. If anyone has ever tried to submit plans through councils, they would be aware of the difficulties that have to be confronted and the risk-averse approach the council adopts. To ensure they are not held liable should your proposal fail in some factor and risk, council being sued for allowing it to happen. What is going to happen if and when these tidal flats silt up, channels disrupted, ceasing access for boats to travel west on the Robbins Passage? Who is liable? Can we hold the council liable for the potential damage?
They certainly can't hide their heads and say they weren't aware, because documents from the hydrology experts put forward in our submission clearly points this out to all.
So Bevan Anderson, so we compare the planning process to an ordinary person's developer's process. You and I would have to walk through steps of dividing sewage, drainage outlets, step back, wing ratings, building specs, and the list goes on with council planners, putting up ever more hurdles. What we get from this proposal is the exact opposite, basically a reverse onus of proof, in that a council will support it, and it is up to the public to prove it is not right. This is hypocrisy at its greatest. In conclusion, you don't try and get a building planning permit for a house on the side of a landslip embankment because you cannot mitigate the risk, or even simpler, you don't build a hen house in a bush inhabited by devils and crows unless you're prepared to mitigate that risk by removing the predators before they get the chooks. So why do you think you want to put wind turbines in the middle of an internationally recognised shorebird area of Bollinger Bay wetlands, and exaggerate the risk even further by interrupting natural waterways by building bridges and giving our right to land away? Risk cannot be mitigated to an acceptable level in this area. However, it can be minimised in many other areas where we don't need bridges, where the threat to wildlife is far less and overall impact is nowhere near the potential as evident in this development. The council is here tonight should realise they're not voting against wind farms or developments, but they are considering the plan in its dubious merit. Represent the community. Don't rush into the first proposal, as there will be other developers with far more logical and acceptable plans for our area in circle ahead, and that all the community will support. What they are voting on is a legacy for their community, their children and grandchildren, and in perhaps the future they can explain to them why this pristine area was sacrificed for the almighty dollar. The responsibility lies with you.
Is there any further statements? The lady that wishes to ask a question, if there's not, I'll allow this lady to ask a question.
Lisa Jason Snapper again. Many of us do not understand what is, in the council's view, a conflict of interest which prevents people voting who have been voted into this council. We do not understand what is a conflict of interest. Could you explain?
The conflict of interest came about from the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Pilkington and Councillor Dabner, prior to them being councillors. They put in representations. I don't know whether I was for or against, but they put in representations again with the wind farm. We've then followed through and got independent legal advice on that. It's a non-pecuniary conflict because they've given a view either for or against. They've stated the view of what they believe prior to seeing it. We've got independent legal advice on that. We then went through LEGAT, which is our local government of Tasmania, and they confirmed that advice at the request of Councillor Pilkington. I then talked to the Director of Local Government, Matt Healy, who confirmed in writing that the conflict was such that they should not partake in any of the workshops or this discussion and vote today, and they haven't. So it's a non-pecuniary conflict of interest under different legislation than council. It's under the planning, and we have to follow the legal channels with that.
But this question follows up on this. This means that none of you should be voting Because all of them have some kind of opinion.
Exactly.
So this is actually...
I'm sorry, it only comes in when the opinion is put out into the public area.
So you need to
in writing. That's the law. I don't make the law, we work with the law.
No, people are not voted in. I'm sorry. They actually, each one of you, to be truthful, you spoke about truth beforehand. Each one of you have an opinion, and this is absolutely illegal.
Yes.
I'm sorry, that's not correct.
Oh.
Sorry, Jerry, but after your explanation of conflict of interest, with Councillor Ashley Poposki's comments made at the public forum about the economic renaissance our community will benefit from the wind towers, I feel that he has a conflict of interest as well, and I think he should be removed. He specifically stated numbers that the community would receive, which was wrong.
Melissa, I'll answer your question if you allow me to do so.
Yes.
Councillor Bobosky at that forum was responding to a question in regard to what possible benefits they were. He never stated his opinion on that matter. He stated what the benefits may be. Councillor Bobosky never put a representation in or been out in the public in any way stating for or against Roberts Island Wind Farm.
He has on several occasions. As an elected member of this community, I feel that he has been...
Once again, Melissa, it's not a debate. I've answered your question.
So you're telling me when I go to the Department of Premier and Cabinet that he's not going to be classed as a conflict of interest because he told the community about the money?
It's not a debate, Melissa, correct? That's what I'm telling you. Yes.
All right, we'll see in the appeals process.
Hello, Simon Dobson. I would just like to comment on the whole submission procedure. I did make a submission and I found it incredibly complicated and tedious. I feel a lot of people in the Shire would not have been able to complete the submission. I think if someone has not lodged a submission, that should not be a statement that they are in agreement with the actual development. Acknowledge that it was a very complicated process. I would have liked to have seen the council do more to help the community lodge their own submissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We appear to have got to a stage where we can move on and have the report and the recommendation put. Hang on. Is this another Camilla? David, sorry.
Hello everybody, my name's Camilla. I just want to read out something from Selena. The Circleland Aboriginal Corporation strongly opposes this development. On one hand, we are celebrating our culture as a community, and on the other hand, we are considering ruining one of the most culturally significant areas in Circleland. Selena Maguire, Chairperson.
Thanks, Camilla. Okay, I think we're there this time. Right, we'll move forward to Emma. You're going to present the report.
Thank you, Mayor. The application before Council is for a wind farm on Robbins Island with a total generating capacity of up to 900 megawatts of electricity, along with supporting infrastructure and facilities. The proposed wind farm is for two alternative wind turbine options. Option 1 is for 74 turbines with a hub height of 160 metres and a maximum blade tip height of 270 metres. Option 2 is for 122 turbines with a hub height of 105 metres and a maximum blade tip height of 180 metres. The supporting infrastructure and facilities comprising part of the application include a bridge connecting Robbins Island to mainland Tasmania, connecting at the current terminus of Robbins Island Road, a wharf located on the northern side of the island, and across the island various infrastructure including maintenance and services facilities, temporary workers accommodation, quarries, concrete batching plants, refuelling facilities, underground electrical infrastructure and access roads. The application is for an activity that is a Scheduled Level 2 activity under the Environmental Management and Pollution Control Act. This means that it's an application requiring assessment by both Council and the EPA. Council is required to assess the application against the provisions of the Circular Head Interim Planning Scheme. This is the planning scheme that was in effect at the time that the application was lodged. The land subject to the application is zoned rural resource and environmental management, and the proposal falls within the utilities use class. Supporting infrastructure and facilities are considered to be subservient and ancillary components of the principal utilities use. The application was notified for 42 days, and in total 383 representations were received. The representations raised a wide range of issues. Many of the issues in the representations relate to potential environmental impacts and are therefore matters for the EPA assessment. Key issues relevant to Council's assessment are concerns relating to visual impact, traffic impact, and the suitability of the development in the environmental management zone. It is worth noting that the number of representations itself is not a relevant matter taken into account in the planning assessment. The focus is on the issues raised in the representation. The EPA have completed their assessment and advised Council of their decision. Council can determine to refuse or approve with or without conditions this application. If Council approves the application, it must attach the EPA's conditions of approval as part of the planning permit. Council is not permitted to apply any condition that extends or alters a condition of the EPA. Council's decision does not impact or affect the applicant's rights to appeal the EPA's conditions, and Council is not responsible for defending or enforcing the EPA's decision. Council's decision, whether it is approved or refused, is however appealable itself, and appeal rights are provided to the applicant and third-party representatives. In total, there are 30 relevant standards under the planning scheme that apply to the project, of which there are 18 standards where the application relies upon performance criteria and require Council to exercise its discretion. It is again important to note that the number of applicable standards where the application relies on performance criteria is not a determining factor in whether the application should be approved or refused, that Council is required to assess against each individual standard. The discretions include a discretionary use status in the Rural Resource and Environmental Management Zone. Other zone-based discretions include the suitability of the site for development, building height and location. The building height and location requirements in both the Rural Resource and Environmental Management Zones are relevant to key issues raised by representatives. Other discretions are code-based matters relating to the project being a hazardous use in a bushfire-prone area, the extent of excavation and fill exceeding the permitted standards in the change in ground level code, and the development being in proximity to a water body, watercourse, wetland, and inner shoreline area under the Water and Waterways Code. The proposal satisfies the permitted standards of the Traffic Generating Use and Parking Code. The requirements of the Clearing of Vegetation Code under the planning scheme are not applicable as the application is for a Level 2 activity. The assessment before Council recommends that the application is approved with conditions. It is considered that in each of the applicable 18 performance criteria under the planning scheme, the proposal has demonstrated that the criteria have been met. The discretionary use is considered appropriate to the purpose of the applicable zones. The response to each performance criteria is detailed in the report. Thank you, Mayor.
I rise to move the recommendations that are before us. We'll listen to and wait for a second.
Thanks, Councillor Oldacre. Is there a seconder?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Crosby. Councillor Oldacre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for those who've put some time into coming. This project has been on the go for some 20 years. That's a long time. But I noticed also in the gallery tonight, there's 5 ex-councillors who have some time had some discussions about these matters. But over the last 4 years, besides taking some legal advice about some matters in relation to this, we've nearly discussed something about the Robbins Island wind farm development on a monthly basis. So we're well versed of what's been going on. The communities the proponents have had these community places where people could go and ask questions, and all the submissions, nearly 90% of the submissions are environmental matters of which we can't touch because they are the responsibility of the EPA. There's another process after tonight that this has to go through. It has to go to the federal government because it's got to go through their Environmental Act. They're the things that have to happen. And I can assure you, we've asked a lot of questions that's been asked here tonight over that 4 or 5 year period. And we've put a lot of thought in. The staff, our own staff and our consulting people that's been employed by council have put an enormous amount of work into putting this. That's why you see a 6,000 page document, agenda, and we couldn't download it properly to start with. So they had to find ways to be able to do that. They've done an enormous amount of work and they've been all under stress trying to do this. And yet we've had people, the emails that have come this last week over another matter is just phenomenal. But because somebody might express a viewpoint that's different to you, you don't become the criminal. And that's how some of them have been treating us. The council needs to support this recommendation. It will bring, in the early stages of the development, it will bring a lot of growth to this community. And I urge you, the council, to support the recommendation.
Does something there for State Daddy. Councillor Babowski, you wish to speak? Back up. Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I concur with your earlier statements about been a long process, 5 or 6 years, and I concur with the mover of the motion, Councillor Oldacre. It's been stressful, it's been worked on, it's been discussed. We've taken representations from for and against the wind farm, and the hardest thing and the thing you learn when you become a councillor is when you step out of the ring as a councillor and you step into the room as a planner, your emotions have got to go and you've got to stick with the black and white rules. And I think that's been demonstrated by our panelists tonight that we've considered all of the discretionary items, and I also recommend it to councillors to pass the resolution.
Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Flowers?
I'd just like to ask a question. I'd like to ask a question on the transmission infrastructure. Now, is that only for the island or is it coming onto?
Transmission is at a later stage, yes, only the island.
Only on the island.
That's correct, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Hyde?
Yes, I rise to support the motion. I think it's a critical thing for Tasmania. You've got to ask your question why it's a project that's been on the go for 20 years. Why has it arisen over that period of time? And when you look back to the vision of Eric Rees and Robin Gray as far as developing our hydro schemes, and they were halted by environmental activists, etc., etc. Tasmania's got no option but to go and try and generate some electricity from another source. When you look back at, say, in the 1800s, there were only about 15,000 people in Tasmania. Today we've got 570 odd thousand people. And so somewhere along the line we've got to try and generate the electricity that allows you to cook your toast in the morning and all those sort of things. And so well, it's all right to laugh, but if you
Yeah, so stay on your.
Yep. Thank you, righto. It's just, we've got to keep moving forward, and this project is shovel ready, and it's going to be a long haul to even get back to perhaps what we should be doing and concentrating more on hydro.
It sounded more like an opinion to me than anything to do
Thank
with
you,
development.
Thank you.
I do have.
Councillor Hine, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Collins, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I may stand alone here, but I'll say what I feel, and I have grave concerns about the impact of our senior community, and I think this is a too valuable area to sacrifice. Therefore, I'm not in favour of this development.
Thanks, Councillor Collins. On that one left. I will be supporting the motion. We've been through, as been mentioned by Councillor Holdover and Sapowski, we've been through numerous briefings of where we at, what we can do, what we can't do, all the advice under the sun over the last 4 years that I've been involved with council. So I will be supporting the motion. Okay, I now put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? The motion is carried. We will now take a 5-minute adjournment. We'll take a deep breath and then we commence the meeting for the rest of the meeting. Thank you, everybody. We'll now move on, reopen the meeting and move on to item 7, matters raised by councillors. Neil received questions in writing. Neil, is there any councillor questions without notice? Councillor Popovski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got two questions. First one being, council's made representation to the state government on numerous occasions over the last few years about the state of the Duck River Bridge on the end of Davy Street in Smithton. Have you got any idea when they will be doing the cleaning and painting of that bridge?
James, thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We have followed up the state growth on numerous occasions, and I'll follow up that again.
Thank you.
Thanks, James, really standard answers. The second question was, for, I believe, more than 12 months, the temporary fencing along the Woolworths footpath is still erected. It's a high pedestrian area. We did have a commitment to have that repaired. Can you tell me the latest commitment when that will be repaired?
General Manager. Oh, do you want to tell me, James?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We don't have a fixed date on when that will occur yet, but there is a meeting coming up later this month to discuss it with all parties, so we can provide an update after that meeting.
Thank you.
Councillor Olaga.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And my question is, can we have some discussion and have a look at where the Woolworths truck backs in? I've seen a lady parked there today, the Woolworths truck either collected her when somebody was in it. I think we need no parking right along there from the Kane's office, but we need to have that discussion.
Thanks, Councillor. General Manager's note that we'll arrange to chat at the workshop and have a look at it.
Thank you.
Any further questions without notice? Not. Thank you. We go to notice of motions 8.1, Councillor Demner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we're all aware, the Department of State Growth and Transport are currently undergoing a legislative review, which is probably an opportunity for us to make some representation on behalf of our wild devil population. As Tony Hine pointed out, Councillor Hine pointed out there earlier on, in an ideal world, we might be able to do something like have timed speed limits through some of the more dangerous sections. Particularly on the North Road and where the high devil kill zones occur. But Transport don't have any mechanism in place to actually do that at present, and I'd like Council to make representation to that legislative review, since it probably doesn't come around very often, and it's a very big wheel to turn the change of legislation. So, and I note that Transport have not identified threatened species as an item of concern amongst their potential items to discuss at those reviews, and I would like very much that this council support a motion to make representation to that legislative review committee.
Thank you, Councillor Dadner. Have we got a seconder for the motion? Councillor Pilkington. Do you wish to speak more on that, Councillor Dadner? Councillor Pilkington, do you wish to speak? Yes.
Where's the motion in the agenda?
Page screen.
It's come.
Up a bit further, mate.
The actual motion.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, what is that?
There it is.
That's the motion, sorry, Councillor Bossy.
Ended up done, actually.
Right, so with one motion, then you want. No, this is the first motion. This is the motion, just my representation to the road. The legislative review in regard to adding endangered species as a reason for checking speed zones. This is the first motion, 8.1. You got it?
It's not tied up in the.
No.
That's going to look at it.
No, this is a separate motion all the time.
I apologise, Mike. That's the, I'm trying to read it.
This is a separate motion, we'll come to the other one. Thanks, Councillor Pilgrim.
I support this motion because to save the buildings, we need to drop the speed limit during the night time to below 70 kilometres an hour. To do that during the daytime on some of the best roads we have is not the way to go. So I think we can get the state government to acknowledge that in hotspots we need to drop that speed limit to 70 kilometres an hour at night and have a zoning that to accept that daytime is completely different from night time and we should have two-tier speed limits.
Thanks, Councillor Pilgrim, then Councillor Flowers.
Yeah, I'll speak to the motion as well. They have a school zone with limited hours, and they have electronic signs, which as far as I know is solar. I can't see why they can have that. There's endangered areas, reducing the speed limit 24/7 is pointless. There's no need to be doing a slow speed, daylight hours, and nothing's there.
Thank you, Councillor Flowers. Councillor Hyde, wish to speak?
Yes, I rise to speak in support of it, and that was the basis of what we were trying to do earlier, and if you look back at the council motion in October.
This is this motion, please.
Yes, as far as speed limits, looking at some guidelines.
This is totally different. This is to put a representation to change the legislation.
I still support that because I think it's, that's what we've got to try and do, and that's why we moved the motion last time.
Okay, any other speakers for or against? I'll be supporting the motion because it, to me, is, I was surprised when it came up in discussing, back a month or so ago, that there wasn't some guidelines that this could be pulled upon. So I'll certainly be supporting the motion. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Dabner, 8.2, Councillor Dabner.
Just get a second.
Okay, I'd like to move the council rescind the decision from last month, well, in part, regarding the reduction of speed on North Road, which we omitted from the final decision. It was included in the original motion, but by amendment, we had that removed. Now, I appreciate that rescinding a motion isn't necessarily a common thing.
Hang on, Councillor Dabner, so we've moved the motion to rescind. Have we got a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Mayor. There you go, Councillor Dabner.
So I appreciate this doesn't happen very often. In fact, I can't actually find anyone who remembers the last time it happened where we revisited a decision of council. But look, I stood over here only a few months ago prior to the council elections with the fresh and old faces on this council, and one of the things I talked about was tough conversations, and without a doubt, one thing that everyone in this room, certainly everyone at this table and everyone watching at home has in common is that of mistakes. And I think we made a mistake last meeting, not entirely, but in part. Now, I'm willing to put my hand up and say I made a mistake. Now, whether that was through inexperience, but I'd say mostly through lack of preparedness. I wasn't aware of the amendment that was coming, and I'm not someone that likes to just stand up and waffle on for no particular reason with no basis in fact or evidence or logic. That's just not how I get things done. And so I sat in silence and I didn't say anything, so I participated in that mistake. A rescind motion is not a bad thing. It's an opportunity for council to revisit a decision based on new information, new evidence. And I feel that at the last meeting we removed the 100 zone reduction to 80 from Wool North Road with effectively little evidence whatsoever. Councillor Flowers absolutely rightly pointed out that it's a very good condition road. It absolutely is. I don't agree with the conclusion that that would then mean we have to start looking at all our other roads, or that would reflect badly on the council. In fact, I think we'd be seen as leaders in devil protection. And I think given the status of devils, the onset of facial tumour being so close on our door, it's been detected here in Smithton, we need to do something. I think I've outlined a number of items in the motion. However, the ones I'd really like to draw attention to is that we approved the final motion despite the weight of support from the major road users there. Now, Wool North Road, from the gates through to the end of that sealed section, I've done that road 3 times this week. And yes, it's a good road. However, we also had the support to do it in the aid of protecting that devil habitat, or the devils down there. But it's not just about the devils, it's about roadkill in general and reducing roadkill on that road, because that's why the devils are coming to the road and that's why they're getting hit. And there's solid evidence to support that a reduction to 80 kilometres an hour from multiple experts would actually have a huge impact on the number of devils killed on that road. And if I'm successful in this motion to rescind that last decision, I will demonstrate through expert opinion, solid evidence, that not only the reduction of speed on Wool North Road is completely warranted, but it's supported by undeniable data backed by experts in the field and users of that road. There's a complete and immediate necessity to help mitigate, as a mitigating step in the protection of Tasmanian devils. Now, I'm also happy that we may have this discussion if it goes through and everyone votes to rescind, that we may end up in exactly the same place, that Wool North Road may still be left at 100 kilometres an hour. And at that point, I feel like we actually had a conversation that was based on some facts and evidence, and we made a proper decision on it. And I don't think we did that last meeting, and I submit that to the table for discussion and decision.
Thanks, Councillor Becker. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Councillor Dabner, and through you, Mr Mayor. I fully support Councillor Dabner on this matter, and after seeing firsthand the speed with which some road users travel on the Wool North and Montague roads, and that was just recently, and we as a council actually sat in a bus and watched it happen in front of our eyes in the daytime. I know that this problem is mainly happening at the night time, that the devils are being killed, but if people are travelling on those roads at 100 kilometres an hour and hitting wildlife during the day, which I'm sure they are, then that's going to make the devils want to come out for a feed at night. So I fully support him. I believe we need to have further discussion with regards to the safety of both road users and the endangered species in the area. And I don't believe that discussion happened in a proper manner at our last month's meeting. Being that there are new councillors on board, and we are still learning and finding out the way that meetings work, we were totally, I'll use the word blindsided because I just thought we were voting on an initial motion, and then when the amendments were made, I became quite confused, and so I voted against what these amendments were saying, because I was of the belief that we were all there for the same reason in voting on that initial motion. I know that there was other confusion around the table, which meant some people may not have even voted because they didn't know which way to go. So
I also would like to refer to a letter that was penned by a wildlife conservationist, very well known, Terry Irwin, in support of our council and urging us to make the correct decision to support the safety of our endangered Tasmanian devil population and lower the speed limit on the Woolnorth Road from 100 to 80 kilometres. Mark also has a lot of other evidence-based facts there that I'm sure he will share with you. Something as simple as reducing the speed limit, in Terry Irwin's mind, would significantly support the recovery of this important species. She also says, and I quote, "My career does not only involve wildlife conservation, but also the business of tourism. Your state, and specifically the particular region we are discussing this evening, is globally recognised for a number of unique and attractive tourism qualities. Specifically, this region is known for having the cleanest, most pure air quality in the world, as well as being the only place on Earth where the world's largest carnivorous marsupial can be found. With international tourism opening up again after the lockdowns surrounding the pandemic, people from around the world are eager to experience travel that will be one of a kind with lasting memories. And with the advantage of social media, these travellers would like to share their experiences with a global audience. Statistically, 80% of Australia's international visitation is inspired by the opportunity to experience our unusual and amazing wildlife. But conversely, the experience of discovering these incredible animals as roadkill gives a distinctly devastating memory of what should be a tourism highlight. Word of mouth, especially in this time of social media, is hugely valuable. For something as simple as reducing a speed limit, Tasmania's tourism reputation will be elevated. And finally, from a safety point of view, simply lowering the speed limit, as studied by the Monash University Accident Research Centre, reiterates the obvious: less accidents, fewer fatalities, and reduction in vehicle emissions and noise. I will be very proud to support and promote a positive outcome for this proposal and look forward to the leaders of the circular community making the right decision. Terry Irwin. And I agree with her.
Thank you. Any speakers for or against? Councillor Oldacre?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two speakers, one either side, and I spoke with quite great passion. As I said earlier, people have different points of view. It doesn't make you criminal because you have a different point of view to me. So everyone needs to respect. First of all, the decision about reduction of the speed on the Woolworth Road, all the data that's been collected and talked about actually includes part of the Montague Road and part of the Woolworth Road. So to say that those figures are just for the Woolworth Road is incorrect. I've seen a story on that through the week. I've seen plenty of people have been very complimentary, some not so complimentary. A photo taken, and I don't know whether it was even in the Advocate, was outside, two ladies standing over a dead devil outside those zones and saying it's the Woolworth Road. The story said it was the Woolworth Road, which was incorrect. Council at the last meeting, and I respect new councillors, may well have been confused, but really shouldn't have been because it was up on the screen on 2 occasions. And we should have all been able to understand what was up. It's not been disrespectful to new councillors or anything, but that vote was 6-3. And I'm going to stick to my guns on principle. I won't be supporting this meeting with the board.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Councillor Oldacre. Councillor Hine?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to vote against that motion as well, because and I make no apologies for moving the amendment. As I pointed out earlier, a previous council made a decision how to address it, and that decision, our request was not back. I think we need to go back to them again, and what Councillor Davin has put forward earlier motion is a start for that. there's a lot of information come forward since we've had that meeting, and I think a lot of that's relevant. I also note that with the minutes of that mitigation committee is meeting again it says in February. We as a council have got a workshop scheduled, I think, the 23rd of March, and one thing that's very evident as far as I'm concerned, when you look at the map of where the Devil's kill has happened, and got a little bit of experience of, you start to look at, you wonder why, and when you start to look at the map, you can work out why that's happening, because 10 years ago, most of the pasture area was actually fenced either side of the bush, but there was nothing sort of put around the front that stopped those animals from actually going on the road. So why are the Devils coming onto the road? They're coming onto the roadkill.
We're discussing the revision motion at this time, not councillor.
Beg yours?
We're discussing the revision.
Yes.
You can't bring new evidence into it.
Thank you. Well, just going back to the motion then, can I make a statement and clarify where a press release was, I was misquoted in the press, and that is, it gave the impression that I expected the council to fund physical fencing barriers, and that's incorrect, and so at some stage again I'd like to get that statement retracted.
Thanks, councillor Hines. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I also support Mark Nanette in the fact that, and I will admit, in the last meeting, I was sidetracked, I did get confused, I was distracted. In the end, I abstained from voting, and I think that I feel personally that the discussion wasn't a long enough discussion and there weren't enough details for us to make good decisions. And as Tony said, there's been some more evidence come through since then that probably needs to be taken into consideration so that we can make a better decision on this.
Thank you, councillor Collins. Does any others wish to speak? Before I create the opportunity for councillor Gladman to sum up, I will be supporting the motion. I didn't read the room well enough while that debate was going on and did not recognise the amount of confusion that was taking place at that point in time, and I've apologised to the councillors, and I do so publicly again now. I believe it's an opportunity for us to re-debate the issue, and like Councillor Gladman has said, how that comes out at the end of that debate is fine, but at least let's have the debate with everyone with some preparedness. Councillor Gladman, do you wish to sum up?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think really the only thing I'd like to say is just in response to the comments about the amendment and the confusion. I think I can probably speak on behalf of those that were confused in saying that we probably felt it was a good old-fashioned gazumping in that regard. We had no idea the amendment was going to be moved. We hadn't talked about it nor discussed it prior to the meeting, and given the significance of the amendment, which did remove the highest kill zones of Devils out of the motion, it's the kind of thing that I would like to think this council would make decisions based on facts and information other than what was presented on the night. And for those of us that were sitting there opposed to that change, we were left really with no information to respond with other than I don't like it, which is not a response that I think is valid at a council table regardless. So just to offer a bit of a clarification on where that confusion mainly sourced from, and apart from that, that's it from me on this one.
Thanks, Councillor Dabner. I will now put the motion. The motion is to rescind the previous meeting's resolution. All those in favour of that motion? Aye. Those against the motion? The motion is carried 5-4. And now move Councillor Dabner on to your New motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, there's limited time to actually present the information I feel is valid for this, but I'll just dive right in, and I'm just going to quote some statistics. What?
Just move the motion.
Oh, right, okay, sorry. I'm getting the hang of this too. Yes, Mr. Mayor, effectively move the motion to reconsider the speed zones. There is a minor change to the last decision for West Montague, and to reduce the speed of the Woolnorth Road from the Woolnorth Gates through to the end of the seal section to 80 kilometres an hour.
Thanks, Councillor Dedner. Have I got a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Dedner, you willing to speak?
Just point of clarification. So the motion now is only to take out that piece where the 80 kilometres, where it was to be left the Woolnorth Road part, the 80 kilometres on the Montague Road, that is still in?
No, the motion is for 70 kilometres.
I'm only seeking a point of clarification.
Yes, certainly, Councillor, but from 70 kilometres from Buckley's, bottom of Buckley's Hill to
Harkers River intersection.
Harkers River intersection, 80 kilometres for the sealed section, going into Woolnorth.
Correct.
Certainly would. Thanks, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Older. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, yes, we have a limited time to get a lot of information across, so I'll do my best. Now, these are some statistics that are pulled from various reports, primarily from Dr. Sam Fox, who is a devil expert, spent quite a lot of time on Woolnorth property studying devils, and the Hobday and Minstrel report, and I know all of us have seen those reports that have been circulated some days ago. Now, probably the most alarming number to come out of those things is that over 90% of all the wild devils in Tasmania are gone, completely gone. That should concern us all, given that the Tasmanian devil is our most iconic species. It's the first thing people think of when they think of Tasmania. Something else that should scare us is that facial tumour disease is nearly 100% a killer. Nearly every host that infects will die. That is inevitable, and we know this. It was first detected over 20 years ago, and in that time it has reduced by over 90% of the wild population. It's been detected as close as Smithton and to the south of the Alpha River. So it's definitely closing in on the last major group of wild Tasmanian devils that live facial tumour disease free. Now, something that comes out of this is that roadkill, which we know is one of the major factors that's bringing the devils to the road, is reduced by as much as 30% when you lower the speed from 100 to 90, and up to 50% when you lower it to 80. Now, we could lower the speed limit to 80. We are not going to solve all the devil roadkill. They are still going to be hit by cars. The idea is to reduce the number of devils that are going to die by vehicle strike. And we can do that through a number of measures, and this is merely just one of them, and there is no magic bullet to actually fix this. It's going to take a number of decisions of council to actually help protect that population in Woolnorth. Now, virtual fencing, which we've done, is recommended by the manufacturer of virtual fencing to be used in conjunction with reduced speed. We've certainly implemented the virtual fencing, but we've left the speed as it is. And the reason they recommend, and I believe it's printed right there on the box, so to speak, is to provide increased animal reaction time. And that's really all we're trying to do here, is buy time. So the difference between 100 kilometres an hour and 80 kilometres an hour buys you around 23 metres of braking distance. This is an important number because that provides the extra almost second of time for a devil to react for the virtual fencing. Another important fact is at 83 kilometres an hour, they worked out in the Hobday and Minstrel report, which is a highly technical mathematical report filled with a lot of extremely technical information. However, they summarise that at 83 kilometres an hour, a driver has time at night on high beam to detect lighter coloured animals such as wallabies, quolls, etc., and come to a complete stop. Now, again, we're not talking about devils here, we're talking about wallabies and such light-coloured possums, which will reduce the number of dead animals on the road, which will, of course, bring less devils to the road, and for that matter, wedge-tailed eagles. Now, I don't know how many of you have driven down Woolnorth Road, come around the corner and found an almighty wedge-tailed eagle with a belly full of food struggling to get off the ground. It's quite a frightening thing. I've certainly had the nails dragged over the windscreen, which is a frightening event. Now that's at 83 kilometres an hour. Now, another gentleman by the name of Dr. Bruce Englefield AM, he's probably peerless amongst Tasmanian researchers in devils. Now, as it turns out, I know Dr. Bruce. I spent time with him in a previous life in Hobart a bit. And he was actually awarded Tasmanian of the Year in 2010 for his pioneering work into devil research and their preservation and protection. He actually recommends that the speed limit be reduced to 60 kilometres an hour during dusk to dawn. As Tony suggested, Councillor Hine, sorry Tony, Councillor Hine, suggested that 60, and that's probably our ideal world. Now the problem with that is that we're going to have to wait a long time. Now I mentioned before we've got facial tumour closing in from the south and as close to the east as Smithton. And it's predicted that facial tumour will arrive at Woolnorth in that wild population, the largest wild population remaining of Tasmanian devils anywhere on the planet, probably within the term of this council. So we've got some decisions to make now, or we can go through a legislative giant wheel, wait for that to turn 2 or 3 years' time. We might, and that's if they even accept our recommendation to take threatened species into account when they can make their decisions on road speed. And that's going to take a long time. In my view, that's going to be too late. There are things we can do. Tonight, we can recommend a speed limit change for 80 kilometres an hour to the Woolnorth Road today, tonight. And the Department of Transport have already indicated that they wouldn't stand in the way of approving that change. I think that's an important point. One of the other facts, I say facts loosely, that's been provided as evidence as to why we, excuse me a moment, shouldn't do this is that it's going to impact the business community too much. If they're going to lose too much time travelling back and forth on Woolnorth Road. I've done that trip a few times this week, right through to the homestead, and I can tell you I had to stop watch out, and I clocked that time from the Woolnorth gates right through to the end of Seal Road as I whizzed onto the gravel there. And the average time difference between heading in 80 in one direction and 100 in the other is around 2 minutes 6 seconds, 2 minutes 16 seconds, 2 minutes 21 seconds, I think was the longest one. We are not talking about a long time here, we are talking about a couple of minutes. So anyone who suggests that that's going to impact their day too much, their business too much, regardless of who they are, and I think most of the people travelling there, probably invoiced by the hour, they're not going to mind billing an extra couple of minutes, I'm pretty sure of that. And either way, the vast majority of that 16 kilometres of road, or the property encapsulating that road, is owned by Van Dairy, and we've all had a letter of support from Mr. Lew himself, speaking of the support of this motion to reduce the speed limit to 80 kilometres an hour as a mitigation method to protect devils on that section of road, as they do take their responsibility to protecting this species extremely seriously. And they're demonstrating it, and they're putting it in words, and they've actually got people on the ground there every single day doing just that. Now, if I could just draw your attention to the screen for a moment. The map here will bring me up a little heat map of the hot zones for devil kills. Now, this is a map that's available through the Cradle Coast Authority, and what I've done is I've overlaid some data here, which comes from the traffic counters, which detect vehicle type by the number of axles and speed that those vehicles are travelling at. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll see the larger yellow circle there, just above the general manager's head, so to speak. That's the Hartness River Road intersection. So basically what we've done in the last decision is remove that entire length of devil kill zone. Now, what's revealing about this is that if we ignore the top number for a moment, we'll just move straight to the second one. We're looking at 26% of vehicles moving through the first section at over 100 kilometres an hour. Astonishingly, or less so, 36% of vehicles are travelling over 100 kilometres an hour through the largest devil kill zone there. It's no coincidence, pure coincidence, that the highest speed through that zone is resulting in the biggest kill zone for devils. It would be ludicrous to assert anything otherwise. 100 kilometres per hour, 31% in the next zone there, and in West Montague, people are probably a bit worried there might be some police up that end of the road, 15%, but are still travelling over 100 kilometres an hour. Now, one of the arguments about actually reducing the speed on this road is who cares? Nobody cares. Everyone knows there's no police around here after late. No police. What's the point in reducing the speed? Well, this is about modifying human behaviour. Now, we can have a discussion with police later on about actually getting some boots on the ground down there to actually do this. I'm not blaming Smith and Police by any stretch of the imagination. They rely on funding just like everybody else, and they're not funded to the extent where they can have people down there doing this. So I think what we can see here is not only do we have a shocking speed problem on Wool North Road that just happens to magically correlate with devil deaths, there's a human behaviour issue going on there as well. Out of sight, go as fast as you like. Unfortunately, in this case, the devils are the ones that are suffering, and as I already mentioned, with 90% of them gone, the bulk of those that remain living on Wool North are being subjected to this level of behaviour on a daily basis. And that's why around 100 devils a year are being killed on that road. Now, that biomass of devils that exist there now are crucial. If facial tumour were to arrive there, say, next week, how long do you think the remaining devils have got? Probably not long. 5, 6 years. Bear in mind it's covered the entire state and killed 90% in the last 20. So we don't have time to just sit around and continue to have new meetings, new discussions, wait for new reports and just wait for a legislative wheel to change before we actually do something. And we have opportunity to do that, and I'm asking Council to support me on that tonight. But I do acknowledge that speed is not the only solution here. We have put in the virtual fencing. Councillor Hine and Councillor Flowers have actually done quite a lot of good work on fencing proposals for those kill zones as well. And the only area that I really disagree with Dr. Sam Fox, I'm with you there. I'm nearly there, mate. Dr. Sam Fox mentions tourism. He says that's not a heavily used road for tourism. I can speak with authority on that matter. Wool North Road doesn't attract huge amounts of tourism, he states. I can assure you prior to COVID, 3,500 tourists travelled that road, and it's back up to around 2,500 now. So in summary, Mr Mayor, I believe this council does care about devils. We've already done something about it. We put up virtual fencing in the past, but that was never going to be the only magic bullet. The evidence provided clearly shows that speed is a serious contributing factor, and one thing we can do something about, that we already have preliminary support from DSG Transport. Now, I think we live in the kindest and most generous area in Tasmania, Circular Head, and that's something I'm particularly bloody proud of. And I'd expect our community to fall in line with us when we explain why we're doing this on Wool North Road. Because I don't particularly want to be the one to explain to future generations that back in 2023, just 3 or 4 or 5 years prior to the extinction of the Tasmanian devil in the wild on Wool North, that we had opportunity to do something about it, but we decided to wait for a legislative review, and I'm going to ask the council to support my motion on this tonight and commend it to the table.
Thanks, Councillor Dadner.
Thank you.
I will allow all the speakers the same leeway, so it may be a little while. Deputy Mayor, Secretary, do you wish to speak?
I've said all I need to say.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the motion?
Yes, yes, yes.
Councillor Proposki. I'll let you off.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment to part 2.
Yes.
Amendment to support, to get the decision, the amendment is to have 80 kilometres an hour from Buckley's Road, at the bottom of Buckley's Hill, right through to the Wool North Homestead.
Right, okay, so we have an amendment for 80 kilometre speed zone from the bottom of Buckley's Hill right through to the homestead. Right, are we a seconder for that amendment?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Oldager. Anyone else?
Am I allowed?
You're going to go.
The opportunity will
I
come.
just wanted to suggest something. There's a very dangerous house halfway up this.
Sorry.
So we'll give the opportunity to throw that into the mix when you debate. Thanks, Councillor Rossi.
And what I moved the amendment was, I'm supporting our task force, which we're a member, which recommended 80 kilometre an hour over the section of road that I've just identified. So we, as one stakeholder within that committee, have agreed at that level that we recommend to the Transport Commission 80 kilometres an hour. Councillor Adabna had some good statistics there, and most of them were based on 80 kilometres an hour. And I think in reading the blurbs on it, I think it was around 0.3 second difference. And I think having one speed limit all the way will make it easier for the road users to know that's the speed limit. And it's similar on the Tarkon Drive. It's basically, you know, 70 through the bush, but that's probably road conditions. But it's 80 all the rest of the way, and it's one constant speed that you know it's going to be doing 80. So I don't think it'll be too detrimental to the final decision, other than to back our workforce, our task force committee, which has recommended 80 over the whole road, not 70 for a part of.
Thanks, Councillor Poprosky. Councillor Holly, did you wish to speak? On that point. Now, Councillor Dewey.
I misunderstood that.
Is there any other speakers for or against? Councillor Hine?
Yes, I'll speak against it because I think, I hear what Mark's suggesting and.
Councillor Hine, talking to the amendment.
Yes.
It's Ashley's amendment.
To.
Ashley's amendment.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I'll support Ashley's amendment because I think that's a practical solution. And as far as the continuity of speed through that area, you only drive for conditions anyhow. And so when you get to Buckley's Hill, you've got if you're doing the right thing, you can only drive probably about 70 for probably 500 metres, and then you're up to, again, but you're up driving in conditions. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hine. Any other speakers? Please, I won't be supporting the amendment. Basically, half the road into Woolworth, once you go off the bitumen, is 80 default speed anyway, when you hit the gravel. And through the West Montague Township,
Could you repeat it?
as I understand it, default speed on gravel road is 80 kilometres anyway. And through the West Montague area, there is one particularly dangerous driveway, which I think requires a speed limit lower than 80. So that's why I will be voting against the amendment. No other speakers? Councillor Whitley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support the amendment is because it's just taking.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
At the October council meeting, the former council moved to support 80 kilometres all the way through. Now, at the last council meeting, we supported 80 kilometres through the 3.3 kilometres east of the Woolworth Gate. We're now saying, well, there's 80 kilometres past the Woolworth Gate, that's fine, but we believe, this amendment believes that it should be 80 kilometres for that 3.3 k's east of the Woolworth Gate.
Thanks, Councillor Older. Councillor Flowers.
So this year we're she's 80 k's from the bottom of Buckley's Hill all the way.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it was all voted against last month, like what a job.
Please.
Well, I'm not going to vote on that because I can't see why everyone's going to be doing 80 kilometres an hour on the best section of road to daylight hours. I cannot see the point of it.
Thanks, Councillor Flowers. No other speakers? Okay, remember, people, we are now voting on Councillor Popovski's amendment, which is effectively 80 kilometres from the bottom of Buckley's Hill right through to the homestead.
So to be clear, what we're voting on is number one, as stated, and number two, 80 kilometres an hour from the bottom of Buckley Hill to the end of the minimum and the golf section down to the north.
Correct. So everybody is clear with that?
Can we see the top of that screen?
I've asked Matt for a map so we can actually see what we're talking about here. I'm not entirely clear on the exact location of where this happens.
If number one is no change.
A map of the road.
Sorry?
A map of the road to see where we're talking about. That's what Councillor Buckley's chosen. Yes, sorry. I wouldn't say it right.
It's just so we're all clear, I don't want any confusion to reign over this one as well.
That's where yours start at Corns Road.
For the 70.
Is that for the 80, James, or was that for the 70?
Part two of the motion was the 80 on the full extent of
But-
West Montague
but-
Road, so that's the start.
That's not mine, that's
It's not.
So where's the West Montague Road start?
Well, that's what we're going to vote on now.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we need to know.
So the amendment to the bottom of Buckley, so it's heading west.
And if you could turn on satellite later, please, so I can see the houses.
3.3 K's comes out where the cow lane comes out there.
Yeah, from the other way. From the other side. Clear with that?
So where the mouse pointer is now, is that what we're talking about?
That's the one, that's a starting point.
And it'll be 80 from there onwards, past Buckley's, past those driveways.
Pass up through Isaac's farm, up over the hill, past
Right.
Buckley's.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we're clear where we're operating from, so we're now voting on the amendment. But basically 80 k's from where the cursor was right through.
Do we think the right amendment in words up there?
It's there.
That's the original there.
Yep.
So is it just a simple case of changing that 70 to 80 kilometres in that?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what we changed to 70 to 80.
The amendment.
Yeah, but there's 100 k's there on one of them. Just right, it's got 70 k's at the bottom, and there's 100 k's just a bit further to the right on that last line.
Yeah, but that's existing default speed is 100 k's there, so changing it to 70 with the amendment says change to 80.
Yeah.
That's it. So councillor Pavossi, clear with that?
Yeah, that's the amendment.
Yep. Right, so we're now voting on the amendment. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The motion fails. The amendment fails, so we now go back to the motion. Does anyone else wish to speak on the motion as up there? Councillor Olega?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I hadn't spoken before, I just wanted to see what was going to take place because I didn't want to be under any confusion either. So, the reality is, and I appreciate the level of detail that Councillor Dabney has gone to, but the roadkill happens mostly in the early hours of the morning with a set of lights. Those that have driven on some of these roads and other roads within the district, it's not always, sometimes it happens at night, but the roadkill comes like that. They come from nowhere, the lights are cracking. And it doesn't just hurt the side of your car, it does a fair bit of damage fair in the centre of the car. And I can recall collecting wallabies on 2 occasions, and both occasions it was $3,000, and one was just on the outskirts of Smithton. So, and it wasn't, it was taking my boy to work some years ago. Now I've travelled the other roads, I've seen a lot of wildlife on the road. You just have to be fully aware of what's going on. Bringing the speed limit back to 80 is some help towards some of it. Lowering it to 70 will not do one thing in that West Montague piece. And there's a couple of corners there that you can't do 70. We appreciate that, right? Because there's a sign says. No. Sorry, Mr Mayor. There was a comment chip from here that and I should not have answered that. So I apologise. Everybody has a right to have an opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. As I said in an earlier speech, because you've got a different opinion, you're not a criminal. Stand by what we did. Well, it's not standing by what we done last time because that got voted in. But to stick to 80 kilometres for money to the other is what I'm going to vote.
Thanks, Councillor Olega. Any other speakers? Haven't spoken already. Yes, Councillor Pendleton.
We're speaking on the original motion.
Yes.
Well, I agree with John on wildlife, and I think 80 is probably a field speed. I come home, my research into devils and roads is coming home from a social function in the evening and along the Hargreaves Road, and I travel at 65 kilometres because I know I'll see 8 or 9 devils in that time. And the other night I came home, I had to stop twice to kill them. Devils have no road sense at all, and they'll just run out in front of you. So I supported the motion to state government to have night time of 65 kilometres an hour because I think that will be effective. In the meantime, I'm going to support the 80 kilometres an hour on a feel-good basis because our community, I think, wants it. But I don't think it's going to be effective until we get the state government to change them to 60 kilometres 65 kilometres in hot spots on the road.
Thanks, councillor Pilkington. Councillor Holman.
Could I move an amendment or an addition to it, and that be for the next 12 months, so we've got time then to go down the track that Mark's suggested, but also there's other suggestions coming forward, and I could read those out, but the 6 main dot points that the committee's working on now does include one vital one, I don't think, and so if we put a sunset clause on it for 12 months and review it in 12 months' time as a way to give us a little bit of time, but I'm fully convinced that we don't need to put that.
Right, let's find out whether the two things that councillor Dabney is willing to add that, or whether there's willing to be a second or two amendment. Councillor Dabney, are you willing to add the sunset clause? No. Thank you, that's all that there. Thanks, Melissa. Is there a second then, if that's an amendment?
Can I allowed to suggest a change to containers?
It needs to be seconded to this amendment, you can move another amendment next time if you wish. If there's no second to the amendment, so that amendment fails. Councillor Pilgrim, did you have something you want to say?
I just suggest that, stand up. I'm doing everything wrong tonight. I suggest that we go back to what we've asked state growth to do. And the clause is that if state growth approve of our dual system, we go back to 100 kilometres default during the day, apart from road safety issues, and on the longer sections of the road, and 65 kilometres during the days.
Is there a second? Is there a second to that amendment? No second to that, the amendment fails. Okay, we've had a fair go around, it's short. Councillor Collins, you have another go, yep?
I'm just going to suggest one last amendment, possibly, why not? Possibly just putting a 70 through the township of West Montague, and once they get past Buckley's Hill, but they wanted that right through to the north gate, through the road. If we took that back closer, and then put 8 and 4 rest way through it, just to protect the houses on that hill and their driveways, so that that's not dangerous for them to be entering onto the main road.
Okay, is there a second to that amendment? If not, that amendment fails. We've run out of options for amendments. There's no more there. Yeah, thanks, Ron. Sorry, Councillor Flowers, appreciate you not moving the amendment. Look, my comment, I'll be supporting the motion. The basic 70 k's through the township is sensible. Councillor Holden and Councillor Hines correctly, there's a pair of places where you can't go 70 k's. But there's also some very dangerous driveways as you go up along the road that need some slowness around them, so I'll be supporting the motion. If no further, or Councillor Devon, there has been dissenting, so you can sum up if you want, or is that?
There is one thing I will say, that these good people have stayed on that. Just with the chatter amongst the potential future maybe giant changes in legislative terms, you know, like I said, I've driven that road several times this week already, for various reasons, and I'll be honest with you, I agree with Rodney's summary that driving down those long straights at 100 kilometres, at 80 kilometres an hour seems a little tedious during the day. But this is the hammer that we've got right now. We need to do something. It's 2 minutes. That's it, 2 minutes. You know, like I say, it feels tedious, but then I was giving myself a kick in the pants because it's 2 minutes. We all need to get over ourselves. It's got the support of everybody who uses the road, and yes, I'd like to see it go through as it is. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Gardner. I'll move to having, putting the motion before someone else comes up with something. All those in favour of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those against? The motion is carried. Move on now to 9.0, financial report. Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to present the financial report for the period of the 31st of January 2023. The seventh month of the seventh month of the financial year has ended in an operating surplus of $1.9 million, $11.7 million of income received to a budget amount of $16.5 million, amongst all of the other things with net assets of $250
million. Thank you, Duncan. Is there any questions to Duncan in relation to the finances? No questions, I'll ask for a mover.
So moved.
Thanks, Councillor Bosky, seconded by Councillor Collins. Put the motion, those in favour? Those against? Carried. Senior management report, General Manager. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My computer locked up for a minute there. The main thing I wanted to bring to your attention this time around is the work that's being done to update key corporate documents to ensure that our policies and charters and codes are up to date. And it sounds pretty dry, but it's actually a key component of ensuring council is compliant with all its legislative obligations. And it is a good piece of work. I wanted to bring it to councillors' attention. That's all I really wanted to say tonight about the senior management report. The rest of it, I will take any questions.
Any questions to the General Manager?
Sorry.
If not, could I have a mover for the report, please? Thanks, Councillor Ladner. Someone second? Deputy Mayor? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Minutes. It's the minutes. Some 2 minutes there. And public correspondence there. Is there any questions or queries around any of that? If not, could I have a mover that they be accepted, please? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Hine, was that? Thank you, Councillor Hine. Councillor Hine second. So I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. I now need a motion that we resolve by absolute majority. Thanks, Councillor Olaker, seconded by Councillor Flowers. Motion, those in favour, those against carried, and I need a motion to close the meeting. And do I have a mover that we close the public section of the meeting? Thanks, Councillor Hine, seconded Councillor Pilkington. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you, and thank you everyone for your attendance. I will also, even though most have gone, say thank you for the way everyone conducted themselves on what was always going to be a very emotive night. So thank you very much.